I was over in my office this morning in North Hollywood, and I had all these older publications of the books, and of course I picked The Long Winter off the shelf. And this particular edition, let's see, when was this actually? This one was actually published. This one was, the copyright on this edition is 1940. And it has, throughout, it has, everything that we see now has illustrations by Garth Williams in it. In the original versions of the books, let me turn this down. In the original versions of the books, Helen Sewell was the illustrator. And actually, there are actually two artists credited in this book. Helen Sewell and Mildred Boyle are the two artists that illustrated Laura's books originally for Harper and Brothers. So in later editions, along came Garth Williams and added a whole different quality to the illustrations of the book. But I think this is really fun to see something back from 1940. Helen Sewell did a great job, and she did sort of she did line drawings and just very simple, sincere, very much in keeping with the feeling of the books. I think she was a great choice to launch this, and then Garth Williams took it to a different level. Today, and hi, I'm just looking at names going by now. Bill Barnaby, hi Barnaby, how are you? All the way from England. It's sort of, what is it? It's 3 hours, 8 hours. What is it? It's 8 hours difference. So you're into the evening now for you. Bonnets on, everybody. Denise, Tina, Jerry, and Martha is saying, I have old ones too, German and English. Wow, in German and English, which is really cool. The books have been translated into, well, I know the television series has been translated into 40 different languages, and it's I would think it's possible that the books have been translated into at least that many languages. So it's really fun. It's really fun that so many people all over the world have loved these books and continued to love the books. Hi, Sarah. Paul from Massachusetts, Catherine from Ireland. Well, isn't that just the coolest thing? Wow. And Laura Neal from Mississippi, Tracy from Michigan. And Marie writes, she has books in 6 different languages. Elisa, I'm saying your name. Say your name, say your name. I'm saying your name. Hi, Elisa. Thank you for watching today. Thank you for being with us. Katie from Wisconsin. Wow, and Gia, the French, saying the French one that she has have stamped illustrations that look more like faded cartoons, which is sort of interesting. And Bill is saying that the internet is acting up. I'm getting a clear signal out of my space today, so I'm not sure where the issues are, but with the internet, it could be anywhere. We'll just do the best we can. Today, we're going to read 3 different chapters today, and there, 2 of the 3 chapters are pretty short. And the drama is really rising now. If you're reading along, you know that the Ingalls are hungry. We don't know, and we know about Almanzo and Royal Wilder, and they seem to be doing okay, but clearly the Ingalls are hungry, and we're going to read about that, how hungry they are right now, and we're going to find out about the solution to their problem, or an attempt at a solution to their problem in this chapter. So, Jim Beck said they just found out that Mrs. Butler played Donna Martin's mother. she was the obtuse Felice who always said the wrong thing. You know, on 90210, the adults were always the ones who did the wrong thing. The kids were the smart ones, and that's sort of classic for that kind of program. With Little House, you know, Little House was an equal opportunity. You know, everyone could be right and everyone could be wrong. You know, almost universally with 90210, the adults were the wrong ones, other than the Joey Tata character who ran the you know, what was it called, the Shake Shack or whatever, where everyone went after school, and Joey was sort of like played a character that everybody could sort of, you know, get some sage advice from, you know, from the soda jerk. So. And nothing pejorative about jerk and soda jerk. It's just what they were called. Anyway, back to Little House. Picking up with the chapter 24, Not Really Hungry is the name of the chapter. It's remarkable how the potatoes came out exactly even, said Pa. Slowly they ate the last potatoes, skins and all. The blizzard was beating and scouring at the house. The winds were roaring and shrieking. The window was pale in the twilight, and the stove pressed out its feeble heat against the cold. I'm not hungry, honest, Pa, Laura said. I wish you'd finish mine. Now you eat it, Laura, Pa told her, kindly but firmly. Laura had to choke down mouthfuls of the potato that had grown cold on the cold plate. She broke a little piece from her slice of brown bread and left the rest. Only the hot, sweet tea was good. She felt numb and half asleep. Pa put on his overcoat and cap again and went into the lean-to to twist hay. Ma roused herself. Now come, girls. Wash up the dishes and wipe the stove and sweep it while I make the beds, and then settle down to your studies. When they're done, I'll hear your recitations, and then I have a surprise for supper. No one really cared, but Laura tried to answer Ma. Have you, Ma? That's nice, she said. She washed the dishes and swept the floor, and getting into her patched coat, she went into the lean-to to help Pa twist hay. Nothing seemed real but the blizzard that never stopped. That afternoon she began, Old Tubble Cain was a mighty man was he. He called for his pipe, and he called for his bowl, and he called for his fiddlers three. Oh, Ma, I don't know what's the matter with me. I can't think. She almost wailed. It's this storm. I believe we are all half asleep, Ma said. After some time, she went on. We must stop listening to it. Everything was very slow. Mary asked after a while, how can we stop listening to it? Ma slowly let the book close. At last she got up. I will get the surprise, she said. She brought it from the front room. It was part of a salt codfish, frozen solidly, that she had been keeping there. We'll have codfish gravy on our bread for dinner, she told them. By George, Caroline, nothing can beat the Scotch, Pa exclaimed. Ma put the codfish in the open oven to thaw and took the coffee mill from him. The girls and I will finish the grinding. I'm sorry, Charles, but I'll need more hay, and you must have time to warm before you do the chores. Laura went to help him. When they brought in the armfuls of hay sticks, Carrie was wearily grinding at the coffee mill, and Ma was flaking the codfish. Just the smell of it chirks a fellow up, Pa said. I'd never seen the word chirks. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Just the smell of it chirks a fellow up, Pa said. Caroline, you are a wonder. I think it will be tasty for a change, Ma admitted, but the bread's what we have to be thankful for, Charles. She saw him looking at the wheat and the milk pail, and she told him, there's enough to outlast this storm, if it's no longer than usual. Laura took the coffee mill from Caroline. It worried her to see how thin and white Carrie was, and so exhausted from grinding. But even worry was dull and farther away than the hateful, ceaseless pounding of the storm. The coffee mill's handle ground round and round. It must not stop. It seemed to make her It seemed to make her part of the whirling winds driving the snow round and round over the earth and in the air, whirling and beating at Pa on his way to the stable. Whirling and shrieking at the lonely houses, whirling the snow between them up to the sky and far away, whirling forever over the endless prairie. The next chapter, chapter 25, Free and Independent. All the days of that storm, Almanzo was thinking. He did not crack jokes as usual, and when doing the chores, he curried and brushed his horses mechanically. He even sat thoughtfully whittling and let Royal make the supper pancakes. Here's Almanzo, a little illustration, a Garth Williams illustration of Almanzo sitting whittling, or whittling, as Royal makes the pancakes, deep in thought. Almanzo's deep in thought, Royal's making the pancakes. You know what I think, Roy? He asked at last. Well, it ought to be something worthwhile the time you're spending on it, Royal replied. I think there's folks in this town that are starving, Almanzo stated. Well, some are getting pretty hungry, maybe, Royal admitted, turning the pancakes. No, I said starving, Almanzo repeated. Take Ingalls. There's 6 in his family. You notice his eyes and how thin he was? He said he was out of wheat. Well, take a peck, say a peck and a quarter of the wheat. How long will it last a family of 6? Figure it out for yourself. I must have other provisions, said Royal. They came out here summer before last, and they didn't go west with the railroad jobs. He took a homestead. You know yourself how much a man can raise the first summer on sod, and there's no work around here for wages. What are you getting at? Royal asked. Are you going to sell your wheat? You going to sell your seed wheat? Well, not on your tin type. Not if there's any way to save it, Almanzo declared. Well, and what? Royal demanded. Almanzo paid no attention to the question. I figure Ingalls isn't the only man in about the same fix, he continued. Slowly and methodically, he reckoned up the supply of provisions in the town when the train stopped running and named the families that he had reason to believe were already running short. He estimated the time it would take to clear the railroad cuts of snow after the blizzard stopped. Say they stop in March, he concluded. I proved that folks will have to eat up my wheat or starve before provisions can be shipped in, haven't I? Well, I guess you have, for a fact, Royal admitted soberly. On the other hand, suppose this weather keeps up till April. That old Indian predicted 7 months of it. Don't forget, if trains aren't running before April, or if they don't bring in seed wheat before then, I've got to save my seed wheat or lose a year's crop. Well, it looks that way. And to top that, if trains don't run early in April, folks will starve anyway, even if they've eaten up my wheat. Well, yeah, come to the point, said Royal. This is the point. Somebody's got to go get that wheat that was raised south of town. Royal slowly shook his head. Nobody'll do it. It's as much as a man's life is worth. All at once, Almanzo was cheerful again. He pulled up to the table, lifted a stack of pancakes onto his plate. Ah, well, why not take a chance? He asked gaily, pouring molasses over the steaming pile. You can't sometimes, most always tell. 40 miles? Royal said. Go out in these prairies looking for a needle in a haystack 20 miles and back? Man alive, you know yourself nobody can tell when a blizzard will hit you. We haven't had more than one clear day at a time since this thing started. More often half a day. Can't be done, Manzo. Fellow wouldn't have a chance of a snowball in Hades. Somebody's got to do it, Almanzo replied reasonably. I've proved that. Yes, but gee willikins. Gee willikins. Yes, but gee willikins, said Royal. But gee willikins, that's a better reading. Yeah, but gee willikins, said Royal. Well, be sure you're right, then go ahead. Be sure you're right, then go ahead, Almanzo quoted their father. Better be safe than sorry, retorted with their mother's saying. Oh, well, you're a storekeeper, Roy, Almanzo returned. A farmer takes chances because he has to. Almanzo, Royal said solemnly, if I let you lose your fool self out on these prairies, what'll I say to father and mother? You tell them you had nothing to say about it, Roy, Almanzo answered. I'm free, white, and 21. Or as good as, anyway. This is a free country, and I'm free and independent, and I do as I please. Well, don't go off half-cocked, Manzo, Royal urged him. Think it over. I've been thinking it over, said Almanzo. Royal was silent. They sat quietly, eating in the steady warmth of the coal fire and the strong light shining from the lamp in its bright tin reflector. The walls trembled a little, and the shadows on them slightly quivered under the blows of winds that squealed along the eaves, split shrieking at its corners, and always roared like a waterfall. Almanzo took another stack of pancakes. Suddenly Royal laid down his knife and pushed back his plate. Well, one thing's sure, he said, you're not going to tackle any such foolhardy trip alone. If you're bound and determined to do it, I'll be going with you. See here, Almanzo exclaimed. We can't both of us go. And that's the end of that chapter. So we know what's going to happen now. Here's a little illustration at the end of the chapter. There have been illustrations at the end of each one of these chapters, and here's a good one. It just shows how stark it is out there. The next chapter, breathing spell. Next morning was still. The sun shone bright and cold, and only the round and round growl of the coffee grinder, the rush of a steady wind, and the crackling of the hay sounded in the lean-to where Laura and Mary worked. They were very cold. Neither could twist more than 2 or 3 sticks of hay without going to thaw their hands over the stove. They could barely keep the fire alive. They could not pile up a store of sticks and get time to help with the washing. So Ma put the washing by till later. Perhaps it'll be warmer tomorrow, she said, and she helped twist hay. She spelled Mary and Laura in turn so that they could spell Carrie at the coffee grinder. Pa did not come home till late afternoon. The afternoon meal of bread and tea was waiting when he came at last. Gee willikins, it's a cold day, he said. He had been able to haul only 1 load of hay that day. The haystacks were buried in snow. He had to dig the hay out of enormous drifts. Fresh snow had covered the sled's old tracks and changed the look of the slough. David had continually fallen deep into hidden pockets of slough grass. Did your nose freeze, Pa? Grace asked him anxiously. Of course, in this weather, Pa's ears and his nose froze so that he had to rub them with snow to thaw them. Imagine that. They're so cold he had to rub them with snow to thaw them. He pretended to Grace that his nose grew longer every time it froze, and Grace pretended to believe that it did. This was their own special joke. Froze it 5 or 6 times today, Pa answered her, tenderly feeling his red, swollen nose. If spring doesn't come soon, I'm going to have a nose as long as an elephant's. Ears like an elephant's, too. That made Grace laugh. After they had eaten the daily bread, Pa twisted hay enough to last till bedtime. He had done the chores when he put David in the stable. There was still a little daylight left, and he said, I believe I'll go over to Bradley's and drugstore and watch the checker game a while. Do, Charles, Ma said. Why don't you play some checkers yourself? Well, you see, those bachelors spend all their time this winter at checkers and cards, Pa answered. They're good checker players, having nothing else to do. Too good for me, so I'll just look on, but I don't know if there's anything more enjoyable than watching a good game of checkers. He was not gone long. The drugstore was cold, he said, but there was no game of checkers that day, but there was news. Almanzo Wilder and Cap Garland are going after that wheat south of town. Ma's face went still and her eyes opened as if she saw something frightening. How far did you say it was? Well, no one knows exactly, Pa said, nor exactly where it is. There's only a rumor that a settler around there somewhere raised wheat last year. Nobody around here sold wheat to anybody in town, so it must be there, if he is, and if he raised wheat. Foster said somebody told him the settler was wintering on his claim. The boys are trying to find out. Loftus has put up the money for them to buy all that they can haul. Grace began to clamber at his knee, trying to climb up to measure his nose with her finger. He lifted her absently. Even Grace, little as she was, saw that this was no time for a joke. She looked anxiously up at him and then at Ma, and then sat still on Pa's knee. When are they starting? Ma asked. First thing tomorrow morning. They built a sled for Cap Garland today. Both Wilders were going, but they decided that one of them ought to stay in case the one who goes gets caught in a blizzard. No one said anything for a moment. They may make it all right, Pa said, so long as this clear weather holds, they'll be able to travel. It may hold for 2 or 3 days, you can't tell. That's the trouble, Ma said. You can't tell. If they do make it, Pa pointed out, we'll have wheat enough to last us till spring, if the wheat's there and they find it. In the night, Laura felt the shock and heard the howls of the blizzard winds. There had been only one short day of rest. The blizzard would let nobody start out tomorrow to look for wheat. For daily bread. Have I read 2 chapters or 3? Let's see here. Yeah, I think that was the 3rd chapter. Wow, that went really fast. It's getting so good now. Well, it's all been good, but it's getting really exciting now. It's I just love reading this. That Almanzo is preparing to do something heroic, and it's very cool that. And we don't know if this is really the way this happened. I mean, we just don't know that. Although there are those listening who may know if it really happened, but it's really cool that Laura wrote it this way. We're going to pick up tomorrow. Oh, one more, I see. One more, short chapters. I know, they are short chapters. One more prairie homie. The thing is, I haven't prepped this chapter, and as much as it may not seem like this is rehearsed, I do pre-read these chapters so that I know what's coming, even though I do fumble over it from time to time, but at least I have some idea what's coming. So I think this is too important. This is too good. I need to prep before I continue reading so that I can at least do my best to give you a good telling of the story. So we are going to stop here today. When we were in De Smet shooting the Little House on the Prairie, The Legacy of Laura Ingalls Wilder, we did recreations from The Long Winter. And it seems I think we did a recreation of Almanzo coming back with the wheat, bringing wheat in to the house, I think, is what we did. This is such cool stuff. And this obviously, I would have loved to have. I would have loved it if my character had been around when this, and Michael had written this way. I think I know Michael. Charles and Almanzo would have gone for the wheat, but there's no way Charles wouldn't have been in on this in the series, unless he was injured doing something else that was heroic. It just wouldn't have happened otherwise. but it's fun to think about, you know. 40 years later, it's fun to think about. Anyway, and I haven't had a chance to, I don't know how many of you watched Karen Grassley's thing. I have not had a chance to. It's been a busy morning here in Southern California, so I have not had a chance to watch. As soon as we stop this recording, I'm going to be watching Karen's recording, and I'm going to be talking to Karen this afternoon. I haven't spoken to her for a while, but we're going to be having a call this afternoon. So, anyway, I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, and we will continue on with For Daily Bread from the Long Winter. And I hope you'll all be here. And thanks for watching. Randy said for a moment, it sounded like Dean said Almanza was coming back with the weed. No. The seed. Actually, the wheat is what I said. Anyway, enough babble. I will see you all tomorrow. And thanks very much. Have a great day. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Wear your masks. Watch your social distancing, and we'll all be good. See you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.